Welcome to Setting the Stage. I'm Brooke Savage. Shawn Welcome is Orlando's Poet Laureate. He has an upcoming workshop at the Dr. Phillips Center. He's here to tell us all about it and to tell us what else he's up to. Shawn, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, Brooke.
So first off, I have to start off with some background. Like, you grew up and tell us about growing up in Central Florida and how you got into writing.
Yeah, so I moved to Orlando in 1993. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. Grew up in Union Park. So Union Park Elementary, Union Park Middle School, University High School. I wasn't really into poetry or writing like that growing up. I actually struggled with reading comprehension a lot, but I was always a decent speaker and could, engage people, entertain people, and that sort of thing, and was more just like a basketball player, So I would visit New York in the summers until my senior year of high school. I moved back to my original hometown of Brooklyn, went to John Jay High School, and I was surrounded by a lot of creative people who were into rap lyrics and doing ciphers on the street, kind of thing. And so it kind of forced me to ask a question like, can I do that? And I think being in that environment, that hyper creative environment, was a catalyst to me exploring writing rap lyrics, and that's how I got kind of started writing creatively and getting into poetry.
Awesome. And so did Central Florida a little bit play a role in your poetry journey?
Well, initially, not so much. I think the spark came from my senior year of high school, but the sort of like molding of it absolutely came from Central Florida. When I moved back to Orlando after my senior year of high school, I started looking for open mic nights of where I could share this like newfound gift that I, discovered my senior year, and I came across spoken word artists. And these were artists who were using more elements of storytelling and, just not staying so much within an ABA rhyme scheme so much. It was broader and it had a little bit more, I want to say creativity, but other literary elements to it, and it seemed to be more freeing for me. So I got exposed to that here in Central Florida, and I got connected to a poetry community, and we started going to different events in Tampa and other places, or just traveling, trying to get more of what we were into. And yeah, that's how it got shaped. Central Florida definitely shaped that, to answer your question.
And is that how you established diverse word?
Absolutely, yeah. So a few poet friends of mine, Blue Bailey, C. Hopewell, they'll know if they watch this, a couple others. We formed a poetry troupe called Diverse Elements. We were me and Blue were a part of a poetry play at one point. I think that was like 2005. And we were invited to speak at 33rd Street Jail for youth offenders to expose them to writing and performance and that sort of thing. So we did that for a couple of years, and the impact that I saw in the jails with the young men that we were working with was part of the catalyst for me wanting to start an open mic night where other people can gather and share their stories, their raps, their art, their creativity, and kind of broaden that impact beyond the jail. So,
wow,
yeah, it was really great.
That's awesome. And tell us about how you became Orlando's Poet Laureate. What do you do exactly?
Great question. A lot of people, inquiring minds, want to know. So the mayor of Orlando, the city of Orlando, Mayor Buddy Dyer, went to one of these mayor's conferences that they have every year. And he heard another mayor bragging about their Poet Laureate and all the things that they're doing in the community, and realized that Orlando didn't have one. And so that position was established in 2017 for the city to find, who would represent poetry and storytelling and literary arts in our community. And so I was a part of that first Poet Laureate selection committee. So I was kind of exposed to that process. And our first Poet Laureate was Susan Lilly, and she served from 2017 to 2021. I stepped down from the committee. They switched around the selection committee members, and then I ended up applying myself in 2021, and I became the second Poet Laureate for the city of Orlando, serving from 2021 to 2025. So I'm in my last year now, but to answer your question as far as what do you do, I pretty much write poems that would be appropriate for city events. So whether it's Black History Month, Hispanic Heritage Month event, it could be the State of Downtown address, just different activities that the city puts on. They would include a poet in that presentation, right? And so that's one role, but beyond that, the title alone helps with elevating the appreciation for poetry and storytelling in schools, elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. If I'm a guest speaker, they say, oh, this is the city of Orlando's Poet Laureate, right? And it just adds that extra bit of value to storytelling and poetry in our community. And so that's what I represent.
Okay.
And that's what I do.
Yeah, and that's not the only thing you do. You wear several hats. You've almost created your own career for yourself,
right? I
right?
did. Shawn Welcome and Associates is its own company. I'm a brand. Come on. But yeah. Do you want me to speak to the other things that I do? Okay. Yeah. I didn't want to assume. So I custom create poetry, spoken word experiences for conferences and trade shows. That could be at the convention center. It could be any sort of maybe corporate brand when they're having their annual conference or big experience. People would hire me to custom create a poem that speaks to their mission, their values, whatever they want their audience to feel. So that's one vertical of work. The second is teaching poetry. So I know you'd mentioned earlier about the spoken word residency on behalf of the Dr. Phillips Center. So that type of work, residencies, I have a curriculum called Echoes of Expression, where I would guide students on how to write and think and share, and hope, try to trigger that spark, the same one that I had when I was in high school, or my senior year of high school. And I also guide teachers on how to teach spoken word poetry. And then the other is just sharing my own story. I had some challenges, on this journey. I'd left my job in 2010 trying to pursue speaking and performing full time. 4 months later, we were homeless. My wife and our 2 kids at the time, lived with different family members for about 7 months, just trying to get our footing. And there's just been other challenges, but through all of that, I was still able to find a way to have a full-time, fulfilling career as a writer and a performer, and kind of spread this energy that I have. So I do keynote speeches. And I know in 2023 I gave the graduation speech for UCF, the commencement address. So that was a real special moment, for graduates. And so I just try to encourage people with my story. I also teach spoken word poetry, but I also custom create for corporations.
That is incredible. So like I mentioned, you have an upcoming workshop with students at Dr. Phillips Center. What does that look like exactly? Because it's happening in a theater. Are people breaking up into groups? How's it going to work?
Right. So the workshops will not actually be at the Dr. Phillips Center.
Gotcha.
It's on behalf of the Dr. Phillips Center, but I'm going out into the high schools, right? So this year we have Ocoee High School, Edgewater High School, and Oak Ridge High School. And I'll pretty much do like a 3rd period at one school, a 6th period at another school, and after school at another. And so I'm pretty much using my Echoes of Expression writing workshop, speaking workshop curriculum at all of those schools. So I'm pretty much giving the teachers a break for a week, leading up into our final showcase called Voices of Freedom on February 7th.
Oh, I see.
And what I do is I'll include some of the students at each one of those schools in the show as well. And it ends up becoming a field trip for the other students and their peers to see them speaking and writing and sharing poetry. It's an incredible experience. And I surround them with really seasoned artists from around the country and in our local community, so they can maybe have a vision for themselves of what it would look like if I were a poet, if I were a writer. Because it can move in so many different directions, but at the root of it, I think the benefit of learning spoken word poetry is that you have more agency, like confidence in yourself to share your own story. You understand that your story and perception of yourself is valuable, right? And then the others, critical thinking skills. We all need to process and look at situations from different angles. All of that is baked into the practice of spoken word poetry. And then the other is, I think, just being a compassionate human being, right? Because as you speak and write and share, you end up becoming, or you find yourselves in communities of other people who are writing and sharing, and you get to see other people's like worldview. So to me, I think the compassion aspect, the critical thinking, and the confidence is the benefits of engaging in spoken word poetry. And that's what I try to produce in the world.
That is incredible. So when exactly do you go into the schools? Is that happening
So this
week?
residency will be February 3rd to February 7th.
I see.
So it's a 1-week residency.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And that's incredible. And the families can come and see them perform.
Sorry, I jumped ahead. I thought you meant for the workshops.
No, for the showcase.
The showcase, yes, the families can come. That is free to the public. Okay. And you just have to pre-register online. It packs out every year, so I always encourage people, get there early. This is like, open seating. I think the Pew Theater only holds 300 or so, approximately 300 seats. But it's an amazing, incredible experience to see spoken word poetry on its highest level. Like, I handpick seasoned artists so that the quality of what the art form can do can be showcased. And I also interview some of the artists and some of the students, and we have a couple of other elements just to break it up. We have a step team this year, which we've never had before. That's rooted in African American culture. I love it, and it's a great time also to do that for Black History Month, right? It's I think curating an experience like that is not I would say as common, right, to see that, and so it's just important for us Black folks to see Black excellence, and to have the craft partnered with that, the spoken word craft partnered with that. It's just really inspiring. And so I'm biased, you know what I'm saying? So people can have their own view, but it's really special.
It sounds special. It sounds life-changing to me. And they're performing at a major theater, not just like a community theater, like Absolutely. A theater where like a lot of professional artists, like you said, come and perform.
Absolutely.
So that's incredible.
Yeah, the craft should be elevated. It should be on that platform.
Yes.
It's just as deep, but people have to understand it, and I think we'll present that well.
Awesome. So, this makes me think, what is some of the feedback you've received from people you've worked with?
Oh man, so some of the student feedback has been, I thought this class was going to be boring, and I'm surprised, that how much I enjoyed it. Some of the teachers would tell me, that kid doesn't say anything, in my class, but having you come in, all of a sudden, I didn't know they wrote poetry, One of the neat things is that some of the families of the students, some of the parents don't even know their kids are writing poetry, right? And then they come to the theater and see them on stage. So you get to learn things about your own children, right? So I think there's a community strengthening aspect, there's a family strengthening aspect to creating space where those creative gifts can be seen and appreciated in a public setting like that.
Absolutely. You're helping people break out of their shell,
which
absolutely. Is so important.
Yeah. And some of them are writing, some people ask me, how do you get kids to write poetry? So for me, I'm there's so many kids that are already writing poetry, but they don't have a space where they have permission to express it, right? So I come in with the flag, we doing poetry today, spoken word. And for those students, they're oh yeah, this is my jam, right? So for many students, I'm just saying it's okay. You can share that,
Absolutely, because poetry especially is a lot of people you go deep when you write poetry, and a lot of people are scared to share it in that way.
Public speaking is #1 fear in America. Glossophobia. It's a real thing, right? And so my philosophy is that if I can get students to get up and speak and share in front of people, like they've conquered the number one fear in America, and they could do anything else after that, right? So, so yeah, it's really powerful, and everyone has a different takeaway. It could be deep, it could be whimsical, it could be, people have their different orientations with the world, their different social locations, but they can bring words to help color and contextualize that.
Absolutely. And so you don't just have this workshop coming up, you have a lot of stuff coming up. Tell us more about the other things you're working on.
Yeah, so let me see, January 31st, that is the education day for the Zora Neale Hurston Festival in Eatonville. I've curated some artists to perform at that show, and that is the one day it's free to the public. People can come and appreciate the life and legacy of Zora Neale Hurston, which is just amazing. Eatonville is the first all black incorporated town in the United States, right? So a lot of historical value there, and should be celebrated and appreciated. And we have a great literary artist in Zora Neale Hurston to celebrate that weekend. So I'll be volunteering there, and that's going to be an amazing experience. Beyond that, there's the spoken word residency finalized with the Voices of Freedom Showcase on February 7th. There's a book that I'm working on that I hope to be completed by the end of the year. There's a documentary about me, which I can't say too much about, but there's some things in the works of kind of sharing my story and my journey as Poet Laureate, and some about my life. But there's a lot of things kind of in the pipeline, and I'm a full-time entrepreneur, so I have to keep working, keep perfecting my own craft, and find ways to add value to my community.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you want to bring up?
What else do I want to bring up? There's an open mic night called Diverse Word that happens the first Tuesday of every month. That is hosted by Marquise Lee, who I've passed the baton to. I started an open mic night back in 2006. I ran that every week for 17 years. And so, but that's still going on. It's the longest open mic night in Orlando. So if people are looking to get into poetry, they can follow at Diverse Word and get plugged in, or they can put Orlando Poetry in Facebook or Instagram. But I think other things I want to mention is just get plugged in, see what may be out there, because people oftentimes, I think, don't even know what they're capable of until they're exposed to it. And so I would just say, get exposed, find your spot.
Absolutely. I think it's incredible that you create that opportunity for people.
Thank you. Thank you.
And for students too,
Yeah, absolutely. Students, adults, the whole world.
Yeah.
Whole world.
Yes.
Come on.
I love it. Well, again, the showcase Shawn was just mentioning is on February 7th at the Dr. Phillips Center. I'll post all the details about what Shawn is up to on clickorlando.com/setting the stage. Shawn, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure, Brooke. I appreciate the interview.
Absolutely.